As a woman, if you feel that feminists are a problem in society, you are one of the most dangerous human beings that has lived on this planet.
I bet she doesn't understand feminism. Women like this claim to be feminists because Chimamanda made it look cool and trendy. Yet they have the effrontery to use their yam-chewing device to demonize other women who aren't on board with this strange Western ideology. My executive producer is back, sort of, and with her help I came across this African feminist on TikTok who had some wild things to say about women who don't identify as feminists.
Women that are able to say, no wonder you got raped though, I mean look at what you're wearing, are one of the most dangerous human beings on this planet.
These days I hesitate to say that people don't say or do certain things, but I find it hard to believe that there are women who would look at another woman in the face and say such a thing to her. They might say it behind her back, they might allude to that sentiment in other ways, but I don't think women can be as blunt as that. But let's say some are. I still don't think that they are dangerous. It is not evil to point out that provocative dresses can in this part of the world lead to rape. It is not evil to point out that being outside in certain places at ungodly hours can lead to rape. But some stupid people react to this point as if those making it are apologists. The only thing they want to hear about rape is bad. Anything other than that is labeled as victim blaming. But that's nonsensical. Yes, rape is bad. Yes, there is no excuse for rape. But rape is also preventable in some cases. Yes, there are evil men out there with wicked and ungodly intentions. Not every man fears God. And a woman can do all the right things and still end up a victim of sexual assault. But it doesn't mean a woman shouldn't take precautionary measures. It doesn't mean that a woman who doesn't take those measures isn't being careless and foolish. The world is a dangerous place. It won't change overnight. So please, be as wise as a serpent.
As a woman, if you feel that feminists are a problem in society, you are one of the most dangerous human beings that has lived on this planet.
This woman doesn't know the meaning of dangerous. I bet she doesn't understand feminism either. Women like this claim to be feminists because Chimamanda made it look cool and trendy. Some even call themselves feminists because white women are doing the same. The African woman's inferiority complex have convinced them that anything a Westerner does must be the right thing. They want to be progressive not because they understand progressive ideology, but because they think that being progressive is what it means to be civilized, educated, and Western. Yet they have the effrontery to use their yam-chewing device to demonize other women who aren't on board with this strange Western ideology.
We have communities that actually cut off women's private parts so that they cannot enjoy sex because in those communities, women are made for men's pleasure.
No, you don't have to be a feminist to oppose FGM. You don't have to be a feminist to say that women aren't objects of sexual gratification. In fact, feminism has led to the objectification of women. Just ask your Western counterparts. Let them educate you. Have you not heard of the sexual revolution? Feminism aided the rise of female promiscuity and the breakdown of family values in the West. Both FGM and feminism have led to the sexual objectification of women. One uses barbarity, the other uses immorality, but the end is the same. They are two sides of the same coin. You don't have to belong to either side. I mean, people are advocating for the end of male circumcision. They don't call it men's rights issue. They just simply say that the practice is barbaric. That's all you need to end FGM, to educate the communities practicing it and show them how harmful and dangerous it is and how the myths around the practice are unfounded and stupid. For places where the practice is enforced by religion, it will be a much harder task of liberating such societies from the shackles of false demonic beliefs, and none of that requires feminism.
For a very long time, women have been programmed to think that they were created for the purposes of men for their pleasure.
Again, feminism reaches the same end through a different route. In a traditional society, a woman's value is determined by her virginity. In a feminist society, it is measured by her promiscuity. I know some feminists who say that they don't advocate for female promiscuity, but what they are advocating for leads to female promiscuity, where women aren't heavily criticized for being promiscuous. With the help of so-called women's reproductive rights, they don't even get to suffer the consequences of their sexual adventures. In feminist society, it is common to see a woman like this.
I have over 100 bodies.
20 years old, right?
Yes.
What the f***?
And they're not ashamed of it, oh. No.
We're proud of that.
That's empowering. In a traditional society, a man prides himself in marrying a virgin. In a feminist society, a man prides himself in taking a woman's virginity.
Me, I'll do 2 or 3 virgins a year.
He doesn't have to marry her. No responsibility, no commitment, just broken hearts and empty promises. But at least she's dismantling the patriarchy by infecting men with STDs. Now, I'm not saying that traditional societies are correct in judging a woman's value by the state of her hymen or being less judgmental in dealing with male promiscuity and infidelity. What I'm saying is feminism isn't the solution. It is an egalitarian version of the problem. Instead of advocating for equal morality among the sexes, feminists advocate for equal immorality.
As a woman, we had to fight for the right to have our own bank accounts. As a woman, we have to fight for the right to be paid the same wage doing the same job as a man.
When did women fight for the right to have a bank account? Can you point me to one study on the issue? Take all the time in the world and you won't find any credible source that backs up this claim. Women have always had the right to have a bank account in the West, especially if they were single, divorced, or widowed. Only married women would need their husband's consent. Most of the legal restrictions in the West around women owning property and managing their finances independently had long been eradicated before the heydays of first wave feminism. In 1839 in Mississippi, married women could legally own property in their names. The New York Married Women's Property Act of 1845 did the same thing for married women in the state of New York. In 1862, women in California could legally own a bank account regardless of their marital status. That same year, Lincoln passed the Homestead Act, a major breakthrough for women's rights. It allowed single women to participate in homesteading in their own name without the need of a male consignor. These are 19th century laws passed before women began demanding voting rights. But none of that happened in Africa. The banking system came to us free of any major gender-based discrimination. African women didn't have to protest for the right to own a bank account. As for the gender pay gap, studies have shown that it doesn't exist in the West, at least. In Africa, I'm not aware of any studies on this. I would love to know what our friend is basing her claims on, but I doubt facts have anything to do with her TikTok rants. She's simply regurgitating what she probably heard from another clueless feminist, making unverified assertions with blind confidence.
Every day, how many women are killed through domestic violence in this 2025? In this 2025, women are still dying through natural birth. Women are dying through childbirth.
Is she serious? How does feminism end maternal mortality? I mean, women dying in
childbirth.
It is bad, but that's not the fault of the patriarchy or misogyny. Or is there something I'm missing? Domestic violence, on the other hand, is a legitimate concern, but you don't have to be a feminist to be against it. Christianity for centuries has taught against domestic violence. Paul said in Ephesians 5 verse 28, "So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church." Since the first century, Christianity has taught that a man who treats his wife well is treating himself well, and a man who is cruel to his wife does so to himself. Peter tells Christian men in 1 Peter 3 verse 7, "Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered." The Christian belief states expressly that a man who doesn't treat his wife with love, honor, and understanding will not receive answers to his prayers. It doesn't get any more anti-domestic violence than that. Yet the Bible doesn't preach feminism. It recognizes gender roles and commands women to submit to their husbands, even the unbelieving ones. Still, Christianity has been more effective in fighting domestic violence against women. Anderson and Ellison did a study in 2021 that shows the negative link between religiosity and domestic violence. According to this study, men who attended church once a week or more were 60.7% less likely to commit domestic violence than non-attenders. In a follow-up study in 2007, Ellison found that for every 1 unit increase in church religious attendance, the likelihood of domestic violence fell by 5%. A more robust study by Jung and Olsen in 2017 shows the same result. It is a well-documented fact that the more religious a man is and the more he attends church, the less likely he is to beat his wife or approve of those who beat their wives. That's the fruit of Christianity. So to reduce the rate of domestic violence, it is more helpful to promote Christian values and practices amongst men than to tell their wives to become disagreeable and obnoxious feminists.
We still have women protecting perpetrators. Yeah. We have women that are still protecting their marriage whilst their girl child are raped by the men in the home. You want to come and tell me that you're not a feminist as a woman and you don't believe in women's rights? Are you mad?
What I want to know is how feminism intends to stop this from happening. This is Africa we are talking about, where rich and powerful men can get away with murder, talk less of domestic violence. A continent where the rule of law doesn't exist. You protest and you get shot. rapists should get a sentence of castration in Nigeria, but how many of them have been prosecuted, let alone castrated? How many of the lawmakers themselves are abusers and rapists? Wasn't it a Nigerian senator who got married to a girl below the age of 18? He didn't do it in secret. It was all over the news. What happened to him? Nothing. So what will feminists do beyond punishing men who, for the most part, aren't part of the problem? The real despicable men will remain untouched and unbothered. You say some women are
protecting perpetrators. Yeah,
but do most of those
perpetrators
look like they need a woman's protection? No, those women are choosing to stay with those men for their own protection. These are helpless ladies shackled by a corrupt society that doesn't value those who are at the bottom, whether male or female. And your car seat feminism won't do anything to alleviate their suffering. You sit in your car and say ridiculous things on TikTok about women who aren't feminists without acknowledging the fact that most African women don't have that luxury. They aren't educated. They can't even spell feminism. How has your online feminist ranting helped transform their plight? When I was in university, I saw the effect of this ideology on my female classmates. It wasn't pleasant. Chimamanda had turned these naive girls into rude, annoying, and painfully stupid women. They acted like standing for women's rights was somehow synonymous with being unlikable. But it's not entirely Chimamanda's fault. She's articulate and doesn't sound obnoxious, but still, her doctrine of gender equality communicates the spirit of bitterness, resentment, and strife. I mean, what does gender equality even mean? How do you measure it? What is the precise metric for judging equal treatment between the sexes? Can both sexes ever receive equal treatment? Feminists striving for equality reminds me of this common incident in my childhood when I had to share a loaf of bread with my brothers. No matter how the loaf was divided, it was never equal. And as the youngest child at the time, I would always feel cheated. But as I grew up, I came to realize that eating to my content is more important than getting an equal share of the loaf of bread. And that's achievable, but equality is not. When you make it the topmost priority, someone will always feel cheated, which will lead to bitterness, resentment, and strife, as we see in the West. So yes, we should do all we can as individuals and as a society to end the unjust and barbaric treatment of women. We should empower women financially. We should honor and respect them more. Yet we shouldn't do it in the name of equality, because though men and women are equal, they are not the same. We shouldn't treat them the same way all the time. It will lead to far more injustice for women. Men and women shouldn't always carry the same burden, bear the same responsibility, and enjoy the same privileges. Sometimes women need to receive more and do less. But once you introduce equality into the conversation, you must remain consistent. It must be 50-50 all the time, irrespective of circumstances. So let's not replace one evil against women with another.
Are you stupid?